So I'm currently a senior here at Illinois Wesleyan, and I'm a very proud Latina first-generation college student, which means I'm one of the first people in my family to go to college. However, I am the first person in my family to study abroad. I took this picture, actually, on a plane while I was on a 12-hour plane ride to St. Petersburg, Russia. So this was my first time leaving the country entirely by myself. It was the first time I'd be leaving my family for more than 2 weeks. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it would be the first time that I really would challenge myself by putting myself in an environment that I was not familiar with, as well as in an environment I barely understood the language. See, as an international studies major and Russian minor, it was a requirement that I studied abroad, so I knew I would at some point. I just didn't know when or where yet. But then the Russian minor came along, and I said, okay, it's Russia, here we go. So I had taken 3 semesters of Russian language while I was here before I left. So I thought I was totally good, like I knew Russian, you know. And then I got there, and then I had a host family that spoke no English. And I realized that I only knew survival skill Russian. So I could tell you, hello, my name is, where's the toilet, all those great things. But then once I got beyond that, I had no clue, especially because it was rapid fire Russian that Russians speak. So it was an incredible, incredible study abroad opportunity that I was able to go on. And the 4 months by way, way too quickly. So in December, December 18th to be exact, I was on that 12-hour plane ride back home to the United States. And I'm sure everyone on that plane was already looking forward to getting back to the US, getting back to their jobs, going back to school, but I was just trying to figure out how I could go back to St. Petersburg because I loved it there. Even though we were only a couple of hours out on that plane ride, I already missed St. Petersburg. I missed the city, I missed the metro, I missed the lights, I missed the buses, I missed the language that was sometimes easy to understand and sometimes really hard to understand. And then I realized that out of everything, the thing that I missed the most was getting lost, and I got lost a lot. Because Russian uses a Cyrillic alphabet, and some of their metro stations and some of their bus stops look exactly the same, in my opinion. And so I would get on the bus or I'd get on the metro trying to go somewhere, and I'd end up going in the exact opposite direction, and I would end up 20 minutes out of the way and definitely not at the destination I was trying to reach. But it was those moments of getting lost in the city and finding myself in a new part of town and exploring and meeting new people, seeing new things, that really made that experience worth it. I remember one of the times that my friends and I were on a mission to go find a dom knigi, which translates into book house or house of books or something like that. And we didn't have an exact address for it. We were just kind of told about it, and we're like, that'd be cool to go check out. So we hopped on the metro and got off at the metro stop that they told us to get off on, and we just started exploring. We just started walking down the street, making random turns, and eventually we were like, okay, we don't see the dom knigi. So we decided to go inside a Russian grocery store, and we asked the storekeepers if they knew where the dom knigi was. And unfortunately, they said that it had already been destroyed or it no longer existed. So we were a little upset because we were really looking forward to it. But we were like, okay, that's fine. We're just going to keep exploring then. So we left, and we just took some more turns, kept walking, saw a lot of really cool things. And then when we were near the bank of the Neva River, we saw this big building, maybe 3 or 4 stories tall, and there was a lot of people coming in and out of it. And above the building, there was a sign that said Dom Kulturi, which translates into House of Culture. And we're like, okay, this sounds cool. Let's go check this out. And it was the most incredible place, in my opinion. It was awesome, and it quickly became one of my favorite places in St. Petersburg because it was a giant indoor flea market, basically. And there was so many Russian people there selling their handmade crafts and scarves and chess sets and literally everything you can imagine. And it was also a great opportunity to practice Russian. And since I went so often, I got to know some of the people, and I was able to talk to them. And whenever I met new people, I would talk to them in my new Russian skills that I was slowly but surely learning. And they actually thought that I was Russian. They thought I was from like Kazakhstan or something. And then I got past the Russian that I knew, and they're like, oh, you're not from here. And I said, yes, you're right. But I'm trying, and that was the most important part. So these were the things that I was remembering when I was on that 12-hour plane ride home. So I was thinking about everything that I was leaving behind because those 4 short months, St. Petersburg had become home to me. But I was also thinking ahead, because the only reason I was able to study abroad was because of some really great scholarships that I was able to get. If it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have been able to fund my trip. The results of one of those scholarships required me to do a follow-on service project. And most people do travel blogs or photo essays or something like that. I just wanted to do something different. I didn't know what though. When I was brainstorming about what I wanted to do, I remember having a conversation with my younger brother, who at the time was a senior in high school. And it was graduation season, he was about to graduate, and he was telling me about his fellow peers who had like a very dejected outlook on college life. They hadn't even started applying yet because they didn't think they were good enough, they didn't think that they'd be able to make it, but mostly it was because of limited financial means. And that really struck me because as a first-generation college student from a low-income background at my alma mater, I knew exactly what those students were going through. I was able to relate to them on so many different levels. And I realized that this was something that I was so passionate about, I wanted to make this my project. And so when I finally got back from my study abroad trip, I emailed my incredible high school counselor, Ms. Hack, and told her about the plan and asked her if it was okay if I came and did a couple of presentations. And she was great, and she reached out to a couple of our old teachers, and they were very enthusiastic, they were very supportive of my project, and they invited me to do 7-hour-long presentations in 7 different classes over the time period of 2 days. So that was fun. And I was really excited because I was like, yes, my project's taking off, it's gonna be great. But then I realized I probably should have something to show to the kids. I should probably start putting together this presentation. And so I did. I started going through Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and every other photo media outlet that I had, and I started pulling pictures out of like the past 7 years of my life. And when I was looking through all of those pictures, I was recalling all of the memories that were attached to them. And I remember realizing, wow, like I got to do that. That's so cool. Like, and I was able to do this. But then I realized that in all of those different moments, there were moments where I felt lost, where I felt insecure, emotionally or physically or spiritually or mentally. But in particular, it reminded me of a time when I was in 8th grade and I was going somewhere with my mom. I have no clue where we were going, but we were going somewhere. And we were lost. I knew we were lost. She knew we were lost. She didn't care. I cared. And I was in 8th grade, so this was before I had a phone. And I remember feeling really frustrated because I could just really easily Google this and we could get there so much faster. And I told her, "Ama, we're lost. Can I please use your phone so I can look up the directions?" And she was just very calm, very peaceful, telling me, no, don't worry about it. We'll be fine. We'll get there. But it was going on, and I was just like, "Mom, please." And then I remember at one of the stoplights, she turned around and she looked at me and very calmly said, "Solo perdiéndote te encuentras," which translates into, only by getting lost do you find yourself. And me being in that moment, being a teenager, I was like, yeah, whatever you say, Mommy. And she just calmly kept driving, drove around in a couple of more circles, and eventually we made it to where we needed to go. So that moment is the moment that came to mind when I was looking through all those pictures. And I started attaching that moment to pictures like this one, where I look like I'm happy, but this was actually taken during the first week here at Wesleyan. And I was smiling at Minor Myers because I thought it was super cool that there was a statue, but I remember feeling very insecure and very lost because I didn't have a lot of support and a lot of guidance as a first-generation student. I didn't have a lot of help filling out the paperwork and the loans and the financial aid and all of those other great things because my mom didn't know about it. My older brother and I had to struggle through that together. Also, I was physically lost because you can still see the little campus map in my purse. It's not a big campus, but I still managed to get lost quite a number of times. But all of those moments that I got lost in, my family was always present. They were my support. So that's my beautiful mother on the left, and my 2 younger brothers, Richard and Alex. Alex is in the graduation cap, and that's my older brother, Eric. So that's the wise advice my mom gave me, that solo perdiéndote te encuentras. And I realized that looking through all of those pictures, that she would tell me the same thing in random moments that had absolutely nothing to do with getting physically lost. So I realized either she didn't understand what she was saying, or I didn't understand what she was saying. It was me. But she was right. And looking at all of those pictures, putting together that slideshow, thinking about all of those things that I have been able to do, but there were so many periods of uncertainty, I realized that she was the one who was right. I didn't understand. That only by getting lost, you actually really find out about yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean that your entire future is enlightened. It doesn't mean that you know everything about yourself. But those periods of getting lost help you find out a lot about yourself. Whether you are independent enough to go into a whole new country and learn a new language and try to survive for 4 months. Whether you're responsible enough to take on tasks. whether you are committed enough to take charge on a brand new project. There are so many different things that you learn about yourself when you do get lost. This, for example, is one of the metro stations that I found when I got lost again in St. Petersburg. I didn't mean to go there, but I got there and it put me about an hour out of the way, so I had to go back home in the opposite direction. But this picture, the feeling and the emotion connected to this memory reminded me that there was so much that I was able to find out about myself when I got lost in St. Petersburg. I realized that when I get lost, I guess I don't panic. I just look for a solution and keep finding a different way to figure things out. But more importantly, it helped me realize that breakthrough moments are not just giant breakthrough moments, but rather they're comprised of smaller yet still significant breakthrough moments that lead you and prepare you for those larger breakthrough moments. In high school, for me, that was putting myself out of my comfort zone and joining activities and finding out what I was good at and not so good at, but also finding out that I love languages and I love helping people and I love meeting new people and trying new things. When I was a senior, it meant going through the whole insecurity, being unsure of whether I was even ready for college, whether I was good enough for college, whether that was something for me or not. When I was a freshman, it meant having to put up with college, realizing that there's a whole nother level required of you when you make it to college, that people have higher expectations, that there are things that need to be done, and deadlines are deadlines, and there's just so many different moments of getting lost physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Go through all of those things, those smaller breakthrough moments prepare you for the large. But I also realized that those lost moments mean that you're going to feel insecure. And I did feel insecure a lot of times. So my advice to you is be unsure and do it anyways. Because chances are, if you take on a new job, if you move to a new place, if you join a new organization, you're going to feel lost at some point anyways. And you're going to have to figure out a solution anyways. You're going to have to figure out a way to get over it, through it, around it, whatever it takes to get you to where you need to go. So be unsure and do it anyways. But more importantly, I realized that those smaller moments in my life led to those bigger breakthroughs. In 2014, that meant battling all the things that I needed to battle to get to graduation in high school. And now, hopefully, May of 2018, I will get to graduation 2018. So I would encourage you all to recognize that in the moments where you feel lost, insecure, not sure, take advantage of my mother's wise advice that I didn't listen to at the time, but now finally understand, that solo perdiéndote te encuentras. Only by getting lost do you find yourself. Thank you.